Hi, everyone. Welcome to the StrategEast Women in Tech panel. We have a fantastic group of women today who I'd like to introduce. But first, I'll tell you a little bit about myself. My name is Amy Peck. I am the founder and CEO of EndeavorVR, and I'm also an advisor and mentor at US Market Access Center here in Silicon Valley. And with us today, we have Anastasia Zaitseva, co-founder and CCO at WITA. And that's a community and mentorship program for women in IT in Belarus. Welcome, Anastasia.
Yeah, hello, everybody.
And Mariam Kobalia, USAID Economic Security Programs Gender Expert in Georgia. Hi, Mariam, welcome.
Hello, everyone. Thank you, Amy.
And we have Maya Vu, who is the ambassador at Women Tech Makers. Hi, Maya, how are you?
Hey, thanks so much for the introduction. I'm pretty fine. Hope everyone is healthy and feeling well.
Great. So I'd like to start with a little bit of data that, is somewhat startling. It's so in a recent study in the European Union, only 17% of ICT specialists have reported that they have discrimination. They've experienced discrimination in the European tech sector. And then just 22 of participants in tech-related meetup events through the EU were women. So let's talk about this trend and how we change it. So Mariam, let's start with you. How can we change these numbers?
I think if we talk about how we are changing the numbers, before starting that, maybe I think it's also interesting to see what is the picture overall and why we need to change the numbers actually, right? So of course, when we talk about the organizations, it's always interesting to see that different people with different background, of course, bring different perspectives to the organizations, right? So what we see now is that there are various studies that confirm that diversity is positively linked to the organization's performance, and it actually provides an organization with a competitive advantages. So according to the International Labor Organization's recent study that actually surveyed more than 30,000 enterprises in 70 countries, around 60% of the respondents agreed that gender diversity initiative actually improves the business outcomes. So it's also important that it increases the profits for the organizations itself, right? So the numbers you've been mentioning that we do have this low number of the women involved in the technology, it really gives us the opportunity to say that there are so many advantages that the businesses are not taking actually, right? So again, another component, it's very interesting to see how positively the diversity and the women's involvement is interlinked with the innovation. So the companies with the diverse environment actually are 3 times, even 4 times more innovative than the ones that have either one sex say so dominated ones, right? So also very interesting fact is that the staff turnover, which is also very important for the businesses because they are investing a lot of time, they are investing a lot of resources for their employees, and then there is, I think it's almost 40% that is the number of the turnover, when in the case of the companies which do have the diverse group of the employers, and of course that means that the number of the women are high, they do have twice less turnover, which is also very interesting. So there are different type of the statistics that we can give here, but your question was what we need to do in this regard, right? Okay, we see that it's important. We see that women bring really good experience to the companies. What we do in this regard, right? So from my understanding, there are different type of the things that needs to be done in this regard. First and foremost, of course, we see the low number of the women who are actually in the technology, right? Because they are not they are not the ones who do have the skills yet. So one component is that we are investing a lot in their capacity development, and so that we have the increased number of the women, because we do see that there is the demand there. However, there is no we don't have that many women that could be involved in this regard. Another also very important component, I think, is that we work with the organizations itself, the organizations that are operating in the IT, because in most of the cases, at least this is the case of the Georgia, that the organizations themselves, they are not committed to the diversity. So they don't do that much that promotes the women's involvement. So I think that a lot needs to be done in this regard as well. And of course, then comes the stereotypes. Why don't we have many women in this regard? And of course, we need to work with the educational institutions, even starting from the kindergarten, even at the primary school, at the vocational education. So it's very complex issue, I guess.
I agree with you there that starting from a very early age also helps, and sort of teaching young girls that this is a career path for them. And so Anastasia, can you talk a little bit about your work at I guess it's at WITA, WITA, and then how it relates and some of the things you're seeing around this data.
Yeah, in our country we have 30 to 70%, like 30% women and 70% men in tech sphere, and that relates more to our historic processes that we had previously. Because in tech sphere we had major part was software service companies, and there were lots of people who just keep on programming and know marketing, human resources, and other things. And historically, our girls, they get more humanitarian education, and boys more math or tech education. And now, the last 3 years or 5 years, we have a major shift from software companies to product companies here in Belarus, due to legislation, due to trends and our integration to global tech startup sphere. So I'm really happy that we have this shift, because more and more women who had previously humanitarian education, they could be embedded into all this sphere in tech processes. And that's really, really cool. And what I see now, that girls who are from 15 to 19 or even less, they are interested in programming. They know that they can also take part in this process, have this job. There is no any blocks or stereotypes, and less girls are thinking of themselves I'm just, oh no, I just can learn languages, or I can just draw, be a designer, or so on. And more and more women are interested in programming, and that's why we have created all this program that I'm leading. It's WITA.by. WITA is Women in Tech Academia. So we give mentors to the girls who are interested in entering tech sphere. Those mentors are not only marketing managers like I am. They are also project managers, business analytics. They are programmers, and so on, so on. So we give the face, and we try to persuade girls that they have power to take any job they want to take. And that's pretty cool. And I think that's pretty major for all of the CIS countries right now. Girls believe in their strengths to take over math and programming and other programming languages, and that's really, really cool, and I'm really happy about that.
That sounds great. And I think also having this network of women who are role models as well sounds like a very important component to some of the work that you're doing. And Maya, so tell us a little bit about women tech makers, and again, what some of the trends that you're seeing, both good and bad.
Yeah, thanks. Actually, I totally agree with Anastasia and Mariam in terms of that topic. And as far as I'm concerned, the topic regarding women in tech starts from myself even. When I was at school, I was interested in informatics, math. I even took part in some Olympiads and competitions in terms of programming, and I even started programming in the early ages, just trying to discover something new for me. And when I had a situation when I should just discover and finally like choose the path where I should grow myself and develop, I decided to go to software engineering and start my higher education in software engineering course and like university. And I remember that feeling that when I started my studies, there were like only 5 girls in the class. And that was like really strange because you're like at the same time that's okay because you're thinking like, okay, I do want to improve myself and develop myself in that sphere, so that's okay that I'm here. But at the same time you're a little bit confused of the numbers and why actually the situation is the following. So everything starts from that part, like that part of my life. And I remember that after the very first half of the year of studies, I enjoy it, of course, but still I was always in my thoughts whether I'm on the right track, whether programming, whether computer science in general is something which I would like to do in the future. And I remember those my feelings, and at that time I discovered different communities, and I just decided to visit different events and conferences around IT sphere just to check what I would like to discover and work on in the future. And one of the very first conferences which I attended was Women Tech Makers Communities event. It was event about, like, that was International Women's Day, and they created a tech event to just share ideas, experience, knowledge about women in tech and their experience. And I remember I joined that event, I joined the community, and I understood how actually community matters and how it's really important just to talk, to share your thoughts and receive the feedback on your thoughts. And from that day, I just decided to go to such different events, and that actually helped me and motivate me to work in that sphere. And one day I decided just, okay, great. So how about like starting my own community here in my home city? And that was like the day when I started working with the Women Tech Makers. Women Tech Makers is the global Google initiative with the main goal to involve more women in tech, to promote, to share the idea that women can be in tech sphere, they can be programmers, that computer science is a science where women can succeed. And actually the main goal of us, and actually the main responsibility of communities, are to organize events and promote that idea of being women in tech. So like during last 3 years, me and Women Tech Makers Lviv are organizing very like different events in terms of IT sphere. We try to like make it really diverse in terms of themes, topics, speakers, and as a result, try to like involve really more women in tech.
That's fantastic. So I love that all of you are working hard and you all come at this from a very personal way, right? And you see that there's a path forward. So I'd like to talk just a tiny bit about some of the data as well. And Mariam, you shared some figures about, how well diverse teams do. And so can you expand a little bit on that? And I'd love each of you to comment, but let's start with Mariam in terms of, how does having a diverse workforce and even if it's a startup, a diverse founding group, improve productivity and the company's trajectory?
Yeah, sure. I think that we can say that there are we can mention at least 7 benefits, like very quickly. That's for the organizations, actually, when we talk about having women as part of the organization. First and most important one that I kind of mentioned already, this is the profitability of the organization and how it increases as soon as they do have the women. But I think here what I want to highlight is that for us, for the gender experts and the ones who are working to empower women, for us it's not only important that we have the certain number of the women in the organization, but for us also it's important at which level those women are. Because the higher, I mean, the leadership level, if we have the leadership level, the women, it has more highest impact actually, because the being part of the woman, being part of the board member, the woman, it increases, they say, at least by 35% the profit for the organizations, which is quite a high number. The second is that when we talk about the company's success, is that recently a lot of people are talking about the female economy, and it's very fast growing. And we see that more and more females are the ones who are consumers actually, or at least influence the consuming, right? So we observe that the customer orientation scores are twice more higher in the case of the companies that do have the mixed kind of board or the management, or they do have the diverse workforce within the organization, to compare to the others that are either male dominated or female dominated. Also, which is very interesting, is how the diversity is linked to the engagement of the workforce itself. Because again, if you look at the statistics, I'm a sociologist, so I'm very, very fond of the statistics and seeing the studies, is that the level of the engagement of the staff, of the employers, is increasing 3 times more when we have the diverse group of the employers within the companies. And there are certain different kind of the benefits that, of course, the women bring, but I think most important that organizations need to highlight is that it's not only empowering the vulnerable groups when we talk about the women or the other diverse groups, but it's also for them the benefit that is there, because it is linked to the innovation, as I mentioned already. It's linked to the profit for the organizations. It's linked to the different indicators as well. So there are really a much that is done there. And I think here what can be also mentioned, why it's interesting why it is that the inclusion of the women changes the dynamic within the organization so much, because actually the governance behavior is different, right? The women do bring different experience and men bring different experience. And there are also a lot of studies that show that the women how are leading, they are more cooperative, they more empower the employees, which is also translated into the productivity of the organization as well.
Yeah, I think those are all amazing points, and I think also you mentioned, the diversity works on both sides. You said, if there's too many men or too many women leading a company, and that it's that sort of diverse leadership style that can inspire the workforce.
When we talk about the diversity, we need at least 1/3 different group within the company if we want to say that okay, the dynamic within the organization is changing, which is also important. That means that we need different groups, not a single group, but all of them together.
Right. And so, Anastasia, it sounds like in Belarus the trends are changing, and you're helping women find these careers in tech. What about at the company level? Are you finding now that the companies are open to having career paths for women in tech and women in leadership, specifically in Belarus, but really, all over Eurasian countries?
Yeah, actually, we don't have any special blogs or something like that for women if they want to make a career in tech. It's more about stereotypes like in social life that women can't program in. And in terms of diversity, I would like to add that it's also important not to have just 30% of women in a company. It's also important to have 30% of programmers, women in a company. But if all of the women in a company will do just like HR, communications, like marketing, that will also lead to less growing product, just because women will they can add something new even to product management, like product creating and other spheres. So yeah, I know that in our company more or less gender balanced jobs are business analysts and testers. They have like almost 50-50 proportion. And of course we have like less gender balanced jobs. But what I see from the earliest age, I have a son, he's like 8. And I took him every holidays. I took him to daily camp on TechSphere. It's more about like creating videos, like the basics of programming and so on. And if last year it was like 1 girl for 9 boys, then this year it was 4 girls or 6 boys. And when I just saw that, I was really happy that even parents, they start to realize and understand that it's really important to give young girl the possibility to be connected to the sphere, to understand how it works, to know something new. It's not just dancing, singing, and so on, gymnastics. It also can be games creation, or like some tech processes or programming, or even like video creation is also connected like to tech sphere, because in any product there should be like creators. So yeah, that's pretty cool. Another problem that we have is that women are paid less, and it's like 10 or 20% for now, but it's like becoming less and less every year. And personally, from my side, I try to eliminate these numbers between the salaries of women and men. But that's pretty hard, because we have still stereotype that women will go to maternity leave, and maternity leave is 3 years in our country. And there is no reason to pay her more, because she has a husband, and that husband will provide all the material things for her life, and she don't have to be paid more. And that's pretty hard to broke. Once I had an interview, and my future boss, he asked me if I want a second child. And that was pretty rude. He actually then refused. He was very unhappy with the fact, and he told me sorry for that, because that wasn't inappropriate. But yeah, there is a stereotype that women should be paid less, because they will go on maternity leave, they will have kids, they have no focus on the work. They have lots of focuses on any other spheres, like family, like children, like husband, like cooking, cleaning dishes, and so on, so on, so on. But that's not for just tech sphere here in Belarus, that's for all the spheres. And we are trying to eliminate this difference between the salaries, just asking for more, being more initiative, being more active, like the women self. I think you may have read the information of how women in Belarus influence political things and issues in our country. So we have really brave and active women here. So I think that we can do everything we want, and it's not just a sphere, it's for all spheres of our life.
Yeah, and so you touch on something, with the pay gap, that sort of leads us into this next question. what are some of the other kind of, violations in the gender balance in the IT industry specifically that you've been observing? And so Maya, you're approaching it also from this community level. What are you hearing from women in terms of, some of the other challenges that they're having where, there's not the level of equality?
It's more about like gender jokes and like not, I think we don't have sexual harassment any kind of here. It's inappropriate at any level or any job. But we do really have jokes about women being more emotional, having like periods in their life and being more sensitive and emotional that days. We really have the jokes. It's more about building walls and building your own like atmosphere around you. So it's more about like being brave also, because you can tell another person that it's inappropriate for you. You will not bear this, and they shouldn't like treat you like this. We had more silent women like last decade, and now we have voice for everything. We can like improve our life, and we I think that's just for last a couple of years when we started to feel that power to change everything. And yeah, sometimes I think really that poor Belarusian men, because they're like they get all these like sometimes aggressive things for all the like grandpas, fathers, grandpas, and other men in like the history of women life. So yeah.
Well, the CEO of our host today, StrategEast, is a man and is Belarusian and is helping promote women, and that's a really important component that that men are part of this conversation. I think we've all touched on some of the things that we can do, but also the shift in the mindset of the men who really are allies for women to help us get to that that equality. And so Maya, in your communities, let's talk a little bit about some of the challenges that you're hearing from some of the women in the groups that you work with.
Yeah, sure. I would probably start from one point which was already mentioned before. I just want to have a comment there. Actually, in terms of women are paid less and about like jokes and all of that stuff, what I can say that based on my experience, I can say that everything depends on the company and its values, like meaning a company, where are you working? And I had an experience working with the two great companies. One of that is like a big IT giant, Google. And I can say that Google is like an example for all of the companies, how the diversity should be promoted and how the values of companies should be incorporated to every new team member, and how for them it's super important. And when it comes to my current company, for us it's also super important to share those values, that like you cannot like, that is like you haven't just to joke on some particular cases or particular topics if you are not sure about like whether it can hurt somebody. So generally everything starts from the company's values and top management as well. So I like, based on my experience, everything starts from top management and C-level. And I totally agree with Amy that males should be they should lead such activities as promoting with women in tech topics. And I had a great example of such of the information and the initiative. We have one IT company here in Ukraine, in Lviv. It's called Symphony Solutions, and they have a very great like statistics, first of all, in terms of women and male, like other genders in their company. And actually they are super active in terms of sharing those values. They have own women community inside company. So like from my point of view, they are an example of that. But their chief executive officer is male, and actually all of those initiatives were led by him. And that is that's wonderful, I guess. And if you are talking about challenges, and back to the question which Emma mentioned before, challenges which we see when we are talking with our community, they are super different, and a lot of them based on some personal challenges as well. Because I cannot say that we have so many different problems and blockers here in Ukraine in terms of getting a job or being a successful women, but still, of course, there is a lot of different stereotypes and a lot of personal things which matters in terms of your own path to your success. And I remember a really interesting story about one girl who participated in several of our events by women tech makers, and one of them was International Women's Day conference, that is kind of inspirational and motivational event to share different stories of great women who succeeded in tech sphere. Is mostly about inspiration. And one girl participated in that event. She's an accountant. She works in the finances mostly, all of last 10 years, I guess. And she was in that event. And after that event, I guess 2 months after, we met that girl again on our event about data science. And data science, that was very tech event with a lot of interesting information for data scientists. And she was at that event. And after the event, she just came to us and shared her personal story, that actually she was always interested in tech sphere, especially in data science, because she has a background in economics, numbers, with it, working with the data, and she wanted to improve herself and try herself in technological sphere. But she had several main blockers. The first one is that she has a pretty stable salary in the finances, and she's an accountant. She has a really big experience in that. So for her, the only way how she can improve and reach some targets is to continue working in that sphere. That was the very first blocker. The second one, that was her age. That that was not she's around 32 or 35, she's pretty young woman, but still she was thinking about that she's too old to start something new, especially in such fast moving and very fast changing sphere as a technology sphere. And the third one was probably that it's super hard to start. That okay, I have some basic background or knowledge in that sphere. I can take several online courses in online resources to know more about data science. But again, I'm not sure whether I can just apply for a job and I will be there and I can start working somewhere. And that was main blockers for her. And when she was at that International Women's Day conference, she listened to a talk of a girl who started her career attack from HR. But before that, she had experience in accountant as well, in finances. And her story was super motivational and inspirational for her. So that after that conference, she actually quitted from her previous job and just started 2 months of very intensive education, online education. And during that event where we met and she was sharing this story, she just applied for internship in one of the IT companies. That the internship is free, and she actually passed it. And now she at that time, she had opportunity to start her own career and internship in a tech company. And for us, that was I remember that feeling, that I understood that a small event, 1 hour talk can really matter, can really help someone to believe in their own power, in their own willingness to switch to find something which is really interesting for whole of her life. So that was like really amazing. And really that is like, I guess, like those challenges which I mentioned, which this girl mentioned before, is probably one of the main ones, is that like males are more confident in their power, in their knowledge about everything. And like probably I will note something, that there is a statistics when women is applying for a job, and there is a job description of like 10 points, different 10 requirements. And if women aren't sure about 1 point, they won't apply at all. And if a male is checking the job description out of 10 points and know only 5 of them, for instance, he will apply in any case. So that is like a thing about girls. They are really not very confident in their own skills, and that's probably one of the main blockers as well.
See, that's very interesting, because that goes to what Mariam and Anastasia were both saying about education. So Mariam, you wanted to continue there.
Yes, what I wanted to add, which kind of resonates what Maya was saying, is that sometimes when we talk about to the organizations and what they do to empower women in the technology, they always say that, they often say that, okay, we do have the gender neutral policy. But always, it's important to highlight that it's not enough for the women to be part of the community to have the gender neutral policy. Sometimes, and in most of the cases, it's important that they are gender sensitive, like what Maya was saying. Sometimes because the male and female, they are not at the same page because of the experience that they do have so far. Sometimes they do need some extra encouragement, and it's not about the words but about the policies. And of course, when we talk about what the organizations are doing for promotion in this regard, if in the organization they do have, and I think this is what Anastasia was saying, is that pay gap is there. If we see that the sexual harassment policy is not on place, and unfortunately, even though we do have this, it's under law, still we don't have, still it's a problem, unfortunately, at the organizations. And I think about the challenges, what my colleagues were saying, to add on that, I think one of the most important challenge for the women, which is not only for the technology, but overall, is that to reach to these leadership positions. Because if we look at the statistics, again, we see that unfortunately in the private companies, only 20% are women. And if we talk about the women in the technology, it's even lower in this regard, right? And another issue that was not mentioned that I wanted to highlight is that even though we do have the statistics that we see that there are a number of the women who are part of the tech community, often those women are doing administrative stuff. So, which is also increases the pay gap there, because administrative staff, it's always the low paid one. So then again, for the males, they have the higher. It's not about having the same different salary at the same position, but it's about having this we call it like vertical segregation, which is there definitely. So there are these type of the challenges, and for the women, it's really difficult to become to achieve the leadership position, which is as part of the company. It's linked to too many different issues. It's about access to the finances issue, which is not unfortunately that good in this regard. So there are different type of the challenges. Yeah.
So it's been interesting too to hear that, in your individual countries, there are some unique challenges, but then we're still facing this kind of overarching kind of global challenge. And so that leads us into another really good question here, which is, how does some of this imbalance occur? And is it part of the government and the legislation in these countries? And, Anastasia, you talked a little bit about how the government is changing there. Maybe if you can start, but I'd love to hear from each of you in your individual countries, where the government is kind of starting to intervene and help.
Yeah, I just wanted to add also another block which I just remembered, and it was more about from the very beginning why I started to help women understand which part they can take in tech sphere is that women do not realize what jobs they can make in tech sphere. They don't understand even naming, like what's business analyst, what is she doing, or who is project manager, what skills should I have for being product manager. And that's also part of work that we do every day. We explain women what skills they should have. Like the story Maya told us about a woman who is accountant, and she didn't realize like how to like implement her skills in new tech sphere, and that's really pretty hard. In terms of legislation, like we don't have any special part for like being men or women, but we have like historically our society is more about man domination, and we have sometimes really like strange quotations from our political leaders about women, that women should just like cook or something like that. It's pretty hard for women to be a president and other things, but actually it works completely in other way. Women start to struggle more to be like even more strong to get what they want and to achieve the goals that they set for themselves. And that's pretty interesting, like how it works. Nobody wants to stay at home and cook dinner. Girls, they want to be part of society, part of tech sphere, part of working processes, part of global business relations, and so on. So that's the situation we have here right now.
And Maya, what about in the Ukraine? Do you find that this is reaching the government level, or is it more at companies and just with the community?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that is like a great question, I guess, since probably the problem starts even from the government level, but probably the best thing about this is that it can be fixed on even on a company or community level, and it's like hopefully it can be fixed. But still, I guess yes, because like right now, if you're seeing that our government, we see that still the diversity there is not so represented right now, and like still on one of the main like the highest level on the government stage are led by male, not women, and still there aren't like if we are talking about diversity there, probably that is the thing that should be like contemplated by any cases. But if you're talking on the global level, country level, I guess, and some stereotypes built by government, I'm not sure that they have such an impact rather than just companies. If the companies have the right values and right policy in terms of that will be fixed, and the diversity can be presented in the each of company, even though the government are not so diverse or government are not sharing the following values. But of course, I guess that it's important for government to share it, and it's important to deliver, to think about it, to highlight, even though for small girls who are thinking about starting their career probably in some politics in the future, for them, it's also important to understand that there is such an opportunity, that even though you're a girl, and for them, there shouldn't be any blockers in terms of gender to enter their dreams and their goals. So yeah, I guess that is the situation in Ukraine. I'm happy that actually it's this situation is trying to be changed by small communities, which can have really a very big country level power. So that's great, actually.
I see. I think that's a very positive vision. And Mariam, what are you seeing in Georgia?
The case of Georgia, I think, is that, of course, legislation-wise, we don't have the limits, and we do have the gender equality law, which is there in place. But unfortunately, the problem here is about the execution, and mostly the result that we have so far, it's rooted in the stereotypes, and it's rooted more like deeply in this regard, and it's related to the families, because we do have the stereotypes there, and this is how the parents are raising their children, telling them that a certain type of the sectors that are promoted, that are believed to be so-called female, and then comes this educational system at the school level. There we do have the teachers who are not sensitive enough, and they encourage, for example, boys to go for the science as a scientist or then the technology, and then comes the media, for example. And of course, it's most related to the, for example, the lack of the role models, female role models, say so, because of course there are some, but it's for the girls it's difficult to associate themselves to this type of the sectors, because they don't see that many examples. While they see teachers, they see in education, girls in the educational system. So in those sectors that are perceived more for females, say so. So I would not say that it's in the legislation. However, when we talk about the economic empowerment of women, of course, there should be, from the government side, there should be some mechanisms that gives the opportunity for women to be at the same level and to have an access to the programs, or to benefit from the programs. For example, when we talk about the startups, for example, or any type of the businesses, for example, if we want the girls to be the owners or the founders of the companies, it's important that they do have an access to the finances, because they cannot get the credits. If they can't get the credit, they cannot have their own companies. If they don't have their own companies, that it goes to that they are the low or the middle level. So it's so interrelated. So, but legislation-wise, we can say that okay, we have equal opportunities for everyone. But in practice, unfortunately, again, because the programming that is implemented, it's not done from this sensitive perspective. Everyone is saying that okay, we are gender neutral. We have it for everyone, but of course, because different people, different groups do have different experience and different background, they are not at the same how it is called, same starting position. So they need to pushing and they need supporting more.
Yeah, I totally agree with Mariam. And actually, like, when it comes to families, really, I am super delighted that in my family, my parents are always encouraged me to go by my dreams, by my thoughts. They never say me something, okay, that's not yours, or like that profession is not successful, or you won't earn money, or something like that. That was like never in my family. But at the same time, I was always listening to different situations from my friends where, for instance, like my friend's mother is an English teacher, and she just advised her to be also an English teacher, because there is a perspective. You can also work in an IT company as an English teacher. So yeah, and she just tried to help her, of course, but at the same time, she just give her some stereotypes about job, about professions. And here's probably a point to add, that in terms of professions and specialists, there is some problems that such positions as HR recruiter are always considered as the women roles in the company. And for us, it's like strange to see a male on such positions or being a head of HR department. And for them, for everybody, it's very strange. And here's also a point that HR, it isn't like any position cannot have any gender requirements or something like that. It's just weird. And really, I think that it's really important to share to children from like very early ages that they can do everything what they want, and they can try any programs, any professions, and that should be like just motivated by, first of all, by their parents, I guess.
Yeah, and so we have about a little less than 10 minutes left, and I've got one more question for all of you before we wrap up. And so, what are the programs, with some of these international institutions, even some of your programs that can really start to help the gender balance and help sort of change things, in Eurasia? So even besides your organizations, where are you seeing some other great opportunities and other organizations that women can reach out to? And Maya, why don't we start with you?
Yeah, sure. I guess I had even a small research on that topic, and I can state that there are a lot of very great communities which can actually have international communities which can help everybody just to find themselves. And if we are talking about those which just come up on my mind, I guess like there is a great organization called Women Who Code. That is also a tech community of girls who share their experience, their knowledge. They teach also coding. They organize really great events. They have amazing newsletter. Really, like for me, newsletters, they are insightful, of course, but that one was always very interesting for me because it is full of different events, different opportunities to be a speaker, to try yourself in an incubator or something like that. So it's really a very nice community to check. Then there is also an interesting community which was founded by Ukrainians, but it's also international one, and I know like they are pretty active in Great Britain and also in the Europe as well. They call WITA.by, like WTech, and that is community for women business founders or founders of startups, but also I think that everybody are super welcome there. And that is interesting community for those who, especially for those who are leading companies. There is really interesting business breakfasts or just breakfast events where you can share, and I love their format because they don't have like exact event with the speaker, with like they do have, but still like there are some of the events where that is just a meeting of interesting people. You can just communicate, and they help just to build that network and find those one who are really interested in a different topics. And they just organize, for instance, a breakfast about sales or a breakfast about like building better community values or values in your company, or some tech related topics as well, or working with the investors for startups, which is also important. So that's great. And probably one of the main key thing which is the same in all of those communities is that actually they are super welcome for everyone, and you can share everything what you want. And I remember when I was thinking about speaking on different conferences and just wanted to share my experience in a particular topic, and I was searching for conferences, and to be honest, I feel more welcome when I just reach out some women communities, because I know that I will be always welcome there. And so it was like those communities are really great from my end. I guess like Mariam and Anastasia can add those one which they think are also very interesting to join.
Great. Okay, so we have just 5 minutes left. So I would love to have each of you just, if you were giving advice either to the younger version of yourself or to all of the young women out there or women out there struggling with career choices, if you could each spend, about a minute and just, give your best advice. So we'll start with you, Anastasia.
So my advice is just to be brave, not to be fear of any things happening in life. Think less, because sometimes we overthink too much. We have lots of like thoughts in our minds, how it should be, how can I be integrated in tech sphere, and so on, so on. Don't have this fear. Be brave and do whatever you want. And another advice is create horizontal links, like between other people to tech sphere. It's not just about any programs or communities you can join. You can create your own community and help other women to get into the tech sphere.
Excellent. Maya, words of advice.
So I think that my advice would be that now we're talking a lot how difficult it is to be in this sector and in this field. So I would advise that be the ones who would be the examples to the others. So it really takes a lot of effort. So I would advise that do their best in this regard.
Excellent. Okay, Maya, you get to close us out. Your piece of advice.
Yeah, I totally agree with those advices which girls already mentioned, but probably one of my own one is to be confident in your own skills. Never think that you are not still skilled enough or something. Like, just try, and remember that success and actually your dreams will find you working. So try to work a lot and just try everything, and never be have a blocker in terms of your own fears. Yeah, and just try, and I believe that all of your hidden dreams and thoughts will always reach in any case.
Well, I think all of you were so inspirational today, and I think that's part of it, right? Being a role model for other women, just to show, what is possible, and that all of these careers is possible. We do have a voice, and it is important for us to really start at a young age to start to change the way we're raising, young girls and young women. And let them know. And I love your story, Maya, about your parents. They empowered you to make choices that, for the type of career that you wanted. So I want to thank all three of you. You were all amazing women. You're all an inspiration. I really want to thank StrategEast for putting this together. This was such a great event. And thank all of you for joining us today.
Yeah, thanks, Emmy, for moderating this event. That was very nice experience and great talk with all of you. Thank you for inviting me.
Thank you all. Thank you, Emmy. Thank you, Anastasia. Thank you.